What could possibly make a Boeing 777 worth more than $300 million turn back mid-air? It wasn't a bomb threat, nor a medical emergency. The only force powerful enough to reverse the course of that giant soaring above 35,000 feet was a mother's love, and a silent but fierce fight against prejudice and racism. You're about to witness the story of a veteran flight attendant who brazenly harassed and humiliated a single black mother and her young daughter, only to trigger the greatest disaster of her own career. This isn't just a tale of airborne discrimination. It's the account of one phone call that forced a multi-million-dollar aircraft into an emergency landing, ended a decades-long career, and showed the world that sometimes the most powerful person on a flight isn't even in the cockpit. The first-class lounge at Los Angeles International Airport is a small haven, secluded from the everyday chaos of economy travel. In that hushed, luxurious space, the loudest sounds are the gentle clink of ice cubes in crystal glasses and the soft murmur of guests finishing work or unwinding before a long journey. In a quiet corner of the lounge, Olivia Carter reclines in a plush leather chair, her gaze fixed through the panoramic windows on the sprawling tarmac outside. Olivia is a 34-year-old black woman whose elegant yet approachable style radiates both sophistication and warmth. She has just closed the sale of her software startup, Technova, a deal valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, and widely hailed as one of the year's most remarkable exits. It's more than a financial triumph. It's a milestone that validates her extraordinary drive, sharp leadership, and unwavering resilience in the face of the racial and gender biases she has battled throughout her career. But at this moment, Olivia's most precious asset isn't her bank balance, nor the sleek platinum credit card in her designer wallet. It's Emily, her 7-month-old daughter, asleep in her arms. Emily's tiny face, rosy lips, and steady breaths bring Olivia a profound sense of peace. This flight isn't simply a trip home to Atlanta. It's Olivia's first chance to introduce her little angel to her grandparents. After years of relentless work and countless obstacles, she finally has the opportunity to savor the joy of motherhood. This moment is priceless, and she deserves every second of it. Surveying the opulent lounge, Olivia allows herself a soft smile. Around her, busy executives tap away on laptops. A famous actress scrolls her phone behind oversized sunglasses, and a few older couples toast each other with champagne. Olivia knows she belongs here. She's earned every bit of her success. Yet deep down she remains wary, a wariness born of experiences where she, as a black woman, was scrutinized and doubted whenever she stepped into spaces of wealth and privilege. Suddenly, a voice slices through the tranquility, cold, clipped, and authoritative. "Ma'am, I need to re-verify your boarding pass." Olivia looks up to see a blonde flight attendant, hair pulled into a tight bun, her name tag reading Karen Wilson. Her eyes are sharp with suspicion, her polite smile stiff and unwelcoming. Clearly, she has singled out Olivia deliberately. Though stung by the needless challenge, Olivia maintains her composure. She reaches into her luxury handbag, pulls out her phone, and displays the QR code for her boarding pass. Karen scans it with her handheld reader. A confirming beep indicates it's valid, yet Karen isn't finished. "And what about the baby?" she asks, voice flat. Olivia's calm cracks just slightly, though she keeps her tone measured. "This is my daughter, Emily Carter. She's on my reservation." "I need to see additional ID," Karen insists. Olivia feels her irritation rise but stays polite. She hands over her wallet and driver's license. Karen examines it with exaggerated thoroughness, dragging out every moment. Finally, she returns the documents with a curt nod. Thank you for your cooperation. Boarding begins in 20 minutes. As Karen strides away, a heavy weight settles over Olivia. Though hurt by the suspicion and indignity, she draws a deep breath, looking down at her peacefully sleeping child. She silently vows, "I will protect Emily. She will never endure what I have." What Olivia doesn't realize is that this is only the beginning of a long, intense battle. One that will change her life and the lives of everyone involved. In that very moment, Summit Air Flight 718 ceased to be an ordinary journey, and the fate of everyone on board was forever altered. As Karen's figure finally slipped out of sight, Olivia exhaled deeply, trying to steady her racing heart. She gently stroked little Emily's sleeping face, as if the baby's innocent calm could soothe the unease swelling inside her. But she couldn't shake the harsh intuition that had just snapped awake within her. Karen Wilson wasn't merely performing a routine security check. That cold stare and suspicious tone made one thing abundantly clear. Olivia was being singled out, and doubted simply because she was a black woman in a space reserved for the elite. Olivia's eyes swept the luxurious first-class lounge. Other passengers were lost in their own worlds, oblivious to the brief exchange between her and Karen. But Olivia knew this was only the beginning. She recognized that pernicious prejudice all too well, a ghostly, persistent force lurking just beyond the edges of her life, waiting for its moment to strike. Determined to quiet her discomfort, Olivia pulled out her phone and skimmed her last few messages before boarding. Minutes later, though, she heard the unmistakable click of Karen's heels behind her again. Olivia's heart skipped. She set her phone down and turned slowly. This time, Karen's expression was anything but friendly. Her eyes were icier, her lips pressed into a tight line of annoyance. Stopping right in front of Olivia, she spoke in a cutting, accusatory tone. "Miss Carter, I need to clarify one more thing. Please confirm once again that you and this baby are both validly ticketed passengers on Flight 718 to Atlanta." Olivia felt anger ripple through her, but drawing on every ounce of inner strength, she kept her voice steady. "I've already confirmed that, Miss Wilson. My daughter, Emily Carter, and I are both ticketed passengers on this flight. If there's anything else you need to check, just let me know." Karen stared her down, her gaze drifting over every detail, from Olivia's high-end cashmere sweater to her Cartier watch and Hermes bag, as if hunting for proof of her unfounded suspicions. Finally, Karen curled her lips into a frosty smile. "We're simply following procedure. I hope you understand. We've had passengers who failed to comply and caused plenty of trouble." Olivia lifted her chin, her eyes sharp yet composed. "I'm well familiar with the procedure, Miss Wilson. I fly all the time, and have never experienced this before. I trust these checks are random and applied equally to everyone." Karen blinked, momentarily taken aback by Olivia's poised but firm reply. She stepped back as if disarmed, then quickly reclaimed her authority. "Of course they are, Miss Carter, but this flight is particularly high profile, and we maintain maximum vigilance. Thank you for your cooperation." She stressed cooperation with a loaded tone, then turned on her heel without waiting for a response. Olivia watched her slender form walk away with disdain, realizing this was more than just her own struggle. It was a battle against an age-old, ugly prejudice. A rush of memories flooded Olivia's mind. Every investor meeting where she faced skeptical glances, every pointed question directed at her alone. She'd always had to prove herself, too, even 3 times harder than her white colleagues, simply because of her skin color. And today, even at the peak of her success, that same doubt and bias still shadowed her. Olivia gently caressed Emily's peaceful face, the baby nestled safely in her arms. She silently vowed that no one would ever make her daughter endure what she had. She was building a new life for Emily, a life in which her daughter would never have to question whether she belonged. Yet, deep inside, Olivia knew this fight was far from over, and that Karen Wilson, so stubborn in her prejudice, was only the first adversary. Standing up, Olivia smoothed the soft blanket wrapped around Emily. In that moment, her eyes met those of an older woman nearby, who gave her a small, empathetic nod, an unspoken gesture of solidarity. Olivia smiled back, warmth spreading through her chest. She understood that, however tough the road ahead, she was not alone. But she also knew this was only the opening encounter, and that Karen Wilson, with her misplaced bias, would not stop here. Taking a deep breath, Olivia prepared herself for the challenges ahead, determined that no one would ruin this meaningful journey for her and her daughter. Just minutes later, a soft announcement from the airport staff called first-class passengers to board Flight 718 to Atlanta. Cradling Emily gently, Olivia moved forward as quietly as possible, careful not to wake her sleeping daughter. Her steps were graceful yet self-assured as she slipped past the other waiting travelers toward the jet bridge. As Olivia entered the hallway connecting the terminal to the aircraft, the muted light through the small windows gave her hope that the upcoming flight would wash away the lingering discomfort of her earlier encounter. But that fragile hope vanished the instant Karen Wilson appeared at the plane's entrance, greeting passengers with a polite smile Olivia knew wasn't meant for her. The moment Karen recognized Olivia approaching, her friendly expression vanished, replaced by a cold, scrutinizing gaze that treated Olivia like some hidden threat. Olivia hesitated briefly, then steadied herself, stepping up and holding out her phone so Karen could scan her boarding pass. Karen didn't offer the scanner right away. Instead, she spoke loudly, each word deliberately emphasized. "Miss Carter, I'm going to need to check your ID one more time before you board." A few passengers behind them stirred, whispering among themselves at the unusual repeated inspection. Olivia inhaled slowly, keeping her tone soft but firm. "I already presented my ID twice in the lounge, Miss Wilson. Is there a specific reason you need to do this again?" Karen, still expressionless, lifted one corner of her mouth in a challenge. "Ma'am, this is standard aviation security protocol. I'm simply doing my job." As she spoke, Karen glanced pointedly at the passengers behind Olivia, implying that Olivia was the one holding up the flight, the source of inconvenience. Olivia recognized the sting of that implication, but she stayed composed. Emily was still fast asleep, and she refused to let her anger disturb her child's rest. Calmly, Olivia retrieved her leather wallet once more and held out her ID under Karen's probing gaze. This time, Karen examined the license even more meticulously, prolonging the process and wasting more of Olivia's precious time. Olivia stood perfectly still in the tense silence, determined not to show how deeply she was hurt. An older man just behind Olivia couldn't contain his irritation any longer. "Is there a problem, flight attendant? We need to board, and she's already shown all the required documents." Karen flinched momentarily, then turned toward him with a serious, professional air, though her words were loaded. "Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience. We are conducting extra screenings for certain passengers." By stressing the phrase "certain passengers," Karen made her bias unmistakable. Murmurs rippled through the line as the atmosphere on the jet bridge grew heavy and uncomfortable. Olivia felt her face flush at this public humiliation, yet she restrained the anger rising within her. Finally, after an unnecessarily prolonged check, Karen grudgingly handed back Olivia's documents. In a voice cold as ice, and loud enough for everyone to hear, she said, "Thank you for your cooperation, Miss Carter. Please proceed to your seat." Olivia quietly stepped past Karen into the cabin, acutely aware of the curious and sympathetic stares following her. That unwanted attention left her feeling exposed and wounded. She quickly located her first-class seat and gently placed Emily in the bassinet beside her. Emily stirred for a moment, then settled back into sleep. Olivia gazed at her daughter's innocent face and silently vowed to protect Emily from suffering anything like this in the future. As other passengers boarded, Olivia watched Karen from a distance. The blonde attendant had resumed her friendly demeanor, welcoming travelers as if nothing had happened. But Olivia knew better. She recognized in Karen's earlier contempt and pointed remarks a deliberate, calculated attempt to make her feel out of place. Before takeoff, Olivia closed her eyes and steeled her emotions. She reminded herself she had to stay strong, not only for herself, but for Emily. Yet deep inside, she knew this fight was only beginning, and that Karen Wilson would not stop here. Those public provocations had been merely the opening act of a long, grueling journey of challenges yet to come. The roar of the Boeing 777's engines grew steadily louder as Olivia leaned back into her spacious leather seat, trying to savor these few rare moments of calm. She was just about to tuck her phone into her bag before powering it down when a familiar figure appeared beside her, shattering her brief peace in an instant. "Miss Carter, I need you to switch off that electronic device right now," Karen said, her voice louder than necessary, her sharp gaze challenging Olivia. Olivia frowned slightly. "The plane hasn't started taxiing yet. I'm about to power it off." Karen pressed her lips together, her eyes narrowing in defiance. "We can't wait until it's convenient for you. It's a clear rule for every passenger, especially in first class. I hope you understand." She raised her voice deliberately, drawing the attention of nearby travelers. Curious glances turned toward Olivia, creating an invisible pressure that weighed on her. Steeling herself, Olivia quickly turned off her phone and tucked it away. "It's off now, Miss Wilson," Olivia replied softly, though her heart pounded with anger. Karen paused for a moment, still eyeing Olivia with brazen scrutiny. "Good. I hope I don't have to remind you again." Olivia turned her head, fighting to rein in her rising fury. She knew Karen was deliberately provoking her, every calculated move designed to unnerve her. But Olivia was determined not to let Karen have the upper hand so easily. The aircraft began rolling slowly down the taxiway toward the runway. First class fell quiet as other passengers focused on their own pre-flight routines, hoping for a smooth journey. But Olivia couldn't fully relax. She knew the silent battle between her and Karen was only just beginning. Once the plane leveled off at cruising altitude, Karen reappeared at Olivia's side as if she'd been waiting. Resting her hand on the seat back, she leaned in and spoke with thinly veiled sarcasm. "Miss Carter, please ensure your tablet is in airplane mode as well. I'm sure you understand the serious consequences of inadvertently breaking aviation rules." Olivia drew a deep breath, keeping her voice low but firm. "Thank you for the reminder, but my tablet is still in my bag and hasn't been turned on." Several fellow passengers began to notice Karen's unusual behavior. They discreetly watched her every gesture and word, clearly sensing that something was off. A kindly, older woman seated next to Olivia offered a sympathetic glance but said nothing. Karen wasn't finished. She continued speaking loud enough for others to hear. "We have to be extra thorough for the safety of everyone on board. Many people don't take these regulations seriously. I just want to make sure you're not one of them." A fire ignited in Olivia's chest. This was no longer a routine reminder. It was a blatant insult, implying she was irresponsible. Struggling to keep her composure, she answered calmly but resolutely, "I always follow all safety rules when I fly, Miss Wilson, and I trust you're applying these rules equally to everyone else." For a moment, anger flashed in Karen's eyes before she masked it with a cold, indifferent expression. "Of course, Miss Carter, we are always fair." With that, Karen strode down the aisle, but Olivia knew she wouldn't let her go so easily. The tension between them smoldered like coals, ready to flare up at any moment. From a corner of first class, young flight attendant Lucas Thompson watched the entire exchange with growing unease. He couldn't understand why Karen would so brazenly provoke a passenger who'd broken no rules. Passengers began whispering among themselves, their eyes filled with discreet sympathy for Olivia. She felt their solidarity, even as the sting of public scrutiny left her feeling hollow. Enduring those hostile looks and pointed remarks felt like someone had stolen a piece of her identity. Olivia bent to check on Emily, who remained sound asleep in the little bassinet. Her baby's peaceful face stood in stark contrast to the storm of emotion swirling within her. Gently smoothing her daughter's hair, Olivia made a silent vow. "I will protect you, Emily. I won't let anyone hurt you." At the far end of the cabin, Karen leaned against the partition, her gaze still locked on Olivia with cold defiance. This skirmish was only the opening salvo, and Olivia knew their tense, silent confrontation would continue, fierce and unyielding, for the hours ahead. The Boeing 777's engines settled into a steady drone, blending with the tense silence that filled the first-class cabin. Olivia sat quietly, the lingering discomfort from her earlier confrontation still heavy on her mind. She glanced down at Emily. Her little daughter was awake now, her tiny face scrunched in a soft whimper of displeasure. Knowing at once that Emily needed a diaper change, Olivia rose carefully and lifted her daughter into her arms. But as she stepped toward the forward lavatory, a familiar figure suddenly blocked the narrow aisle. Karen Wilson. Karen's expression had lost every trace of politeness. Instead, her eyes burned with overt irritation and contempt. Crossing her arms arrogantly, she stood her ground and spoke with icy sarcasm. "Ms. Carter, I think you need to remember this is first class, not a daycare where you can attend to your child whenever you please." Her voice carried far enough for the surrounding passengers to hear. A ripple of murmurs spread through the cabin, and looks of sympathy and anger turned toward the cold, provocative attendant. Olivia paused, stunned for a moment. Karen's words felt like a sharp knife to her dignity. This wasn't a routine reminder. It was a public insult to her right to parent and to her status as a legitimate first-class traveler. Olivia felt her heart pounding and her cheeks flush, but she forced herself to remain calm. In a voice that was clear, cold, and resolute, Olivia replied, "Ms. Wilson, caring for a baby is neither shameful nor against any regulations. I need to change my daughter's diaper right now, and I expect you to step aside." Karen wouldn't budge. She stood defiantly in the aisle, her gaze fixed on Olivia. Raising her voice, she sneered, "I'm sorry, but we have strict rules against disturbing other passengers. First class is not the place for whatever you think you can do." A middle-aged man seated nearby could no longer hold back. "Hey, miss, you're overdoing it. She just wants to change her baby's diaper. What's the problem?" An older woman echoed him. "That's right. Passengers traveling with infants deserve proper accommodation. Why are you making this so difficult?" Karen shot them a look of disdain but didn't waver. She turned back to Olivia, each word dripping with insult. "It's my duty to maintain comfort and quiet for the important passengers on this flight." Hearing important passengers made Olivia feel slapped in the face. Karen was implying that she and Emily didn't belong up here. Olivia drew in a deep breath and, for the first time on this journey, her eyes flared with genuine anger, though her voice remained perfectly controlled and authoritative. "Ms. Wilson, if you don't move out of the way immediately, I will have to speak with a senior member of the cabin crew. I've done my best to stay polite and calm, but you have crossed the line." The cabin fell into an intense hush. Every passenger held their breath as they watched the two women face off. For a brief moment, Karen hesitated at Olivia's firm stance, but her pride and prejudice quickly took over. With a cold, mocking smile, Karen snapped, "I'm just doing my job, and I don't believe you have the authority to threaten me." At that, Lucas Thompson, the junior flight attendant, could no longer stay silent. He stepped forward, hesitant but determined. "Karen, I think you should let Ms. Carter through. There's no reason to block her." Karen's eyes widened in surprise at Lucas's intervention. She recovered her composure, shot him a warning glance, then turned back to Olivia with stubborn defiance. "Fine, Ms. Carter, but I will be reporting this incident to my supervisor as soon as we land." Olivia, her composure fully restored, responded sharply, "Good. I'll be happy to speak with your supervisor, too." At last, Karen reluctantly stepped aside. Olivia clutched Emily close and hurried into the lavatory, doing her best to preserve her dignity and composure amid the sympathetic and critical stares of her fellow passengers. In first class, whispers swelled, and eyes tracked Karen with quiet condemnation. Yet Karen, unrepentant, stood tall at the aisle's entrance, her stubborn pride unshaken. Inside the lavatory, Olivia shut the door, her heart hammering with rage and hurt. She realized this was no longer a simple personal slight. It had become an unavoidable battle between her self-respect and Karen's arrogance and prejudice. And one thing was certain, she would not back down. Olivia took a deep breath as the lavatory door clicked shut behind her. In this fleeting moment, alone with Emily, she finally had a chance to steady herself after Karen's blatant insults and provocations. Her heart was still pounding, but beneath the adrenaline was a resolve stronger than ever. She knew it was time to act, not just for herself, but for Emily, and for the countless others who've suffered the same indignities. Her hands still trembling with anger, Olivia gently laid Emily on the changing table. As she worked, Karen's venomous words and prying stares replayed in her mind. She vowed she would no longer endure this without standing up for herself. When she finished changing Emily's diaper and cuddled her back into her arms, Olivia pulled out her phone. This wasn't an impulsive move. It was a calculated decision, born of her deep belief in fairness, dignity, and the values she'd always championed. Ignoring the airplane mode reminder, she dialed the one number she knew would turn the tide. Robert Harris, CEO of Summit Air, longtime friend and business partner. After a few rings, his warm but authoritative voice answered, "Olivia? This is unexpected. What's going on?" Olivia spoke quietly, her determination cutting through any tremor in her voice. "Robert, sorry to bother you mid-flight, but I'm on Summit Air Flight 718 from LA to Atlanta, and I'm being openly humiliated by one of your flight attendants. She's harassing both me and my little girl with clear, discriminatory behavior." On the other end, Robert's tone immediately grew serious and concerned. "Olivia, tell me exactly what happened." With astonishing calm, Olivia laid out the facts. Karen Wilson's repeated, unreasonable ID checks, her obstruction when Emily needed a diaper change, her public declaration that first class isn't a nursery. She spoke plainly, without exaggeration, but with all the force of the injustice she'd experienced. This isn't just personal. It's blatant racism. You know how damaging this could be if it goes public." There was a pause as Robert processed the severity of the situation. Then, resolutely, "Olivia, I'm so sorry. What would you like me to do?" Olivia inhaled deeply and answered without hesitation. "I want you to cancel this flight immediately. Summit Air must make it clear that any form of discrimination is utterly unacceptable. No exceptions." The sound of Robert's tense exhale crackled over the line. "Canceling a flight is extremely serious. Are you sure?" Her voice centered and unwavering. Olivia replied, "Absolutely. This is about principle. If Summit Air doesn't act now, the reputational fallout will be far worse than grounding one plane." "Understood," Robert said, no trace of doubt in his tone. "I'll contact the captain right away and have Flight 718 return to LAX. I promise you, we'll handle this with the utmost seriousness." Olivia hung up and glanced at the stall door. Through the small gap, she saw Karen Wilson, frozen in place. It was clear she'd overheard the entire conversation. Karen's face had gone ashen, her eyes wide with shock and fear. The arrogance and confidence she'd worn moments ago were gone, replaced by panic as she realized the gravity of her actions. She instinctively stumbled back, voice trembling. You know CEO Harris?" "No, this can't be. I was just doing my job." Olivia met her gaze coolly, pity softening her eyes as she shook her head. "Miss Wilson, you chose to treat me based on your own prejudice. Now, you must face the consequences of that choice." Cradling Emily, Olivia stepped past the stunned attendant. The first-class cabin fell into a hush, every passenger's eyes fixed on Karen, who had just lost everything in a single moment. Returning to her seat, Olivia felt a profound shift. From this point on, not only her life but Karen's career and Summit Air's reputation would never be the same. That phone call had unleashed a hidden power Olivia never imagined she'd need to wield in such circumstances. Karen stood rooted to the spot, her eyes vacant as though she'd just witnessed a waking nightmare. The air in first class felt thick and heavy. Every passenger sensed that something serious had just unfolded. Curious, uneasy glances flicked between Karen and Olivia, as if everyone were trying to piece together the tense tableau before them. Olivia sank back into her seat, holding Emily protectively. Her face was calm, but inside she churned with complex emotions. She had done what needed to be done, wielding a final power she never wanted to use. Yet she knew that if she remained silent today, this injustice would repeat itself for others, in other places. Minutes passed in near-perfect silence, broken only by the steady hum of the engines, a heartbeat shared by every passenger, all waiting to see what would come next. Slowly, Karen returned to her station, her face ashen and devoid of pride or defiance. Then, the cockpit speaker crackled to life, shattering the stillness. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Patrick Mitchell. I regret to inform you we've encountered an altitude-related technical issue that cannot be resolved in flight. For your safety, we must turn back to Los Angeles International Airport. We apologize for the inconvenience and ask for your patience as we make our return." The announcement rang out clearly, but nobody in first class believed it was the true cause. Passengers exchanged knowing looks, then turned their attention to Karen, who now leaned against the bulkhead, her hands trembling so hard her knuckles had gone white. An elderly woman who'd defended Olivia earlier shook her head and whispered loud enough for Olivia to hear, "There's no technical issue. This is the fallout from that flight attendant's shameful behavior." Karen, as if overhearing, lowered her head further and shuddered. trying to stifle the panic and despair welling up inside her. She realized the career she'd built over years had shattered in an instant, the victim of her own prejudice and blind arrogance. Lucas Thompson, the young flight attendant who'd witnessed everything, quietly approached Karen. His voice was gentle but carried deep disappointment. "Karen, I've always admired you. But what you did today was wrong. You insulted a passenger without knowing who she really is. Do you understand the consequences of your actions?" Karen lifted her tear-brightened eyes to Lucas, her voice stiff and stubborn. I was just doing my duty. I never thought it would go this far." Lucas shook his head sadly. "No, you weren't doing your duty. You abused your authority to demean someone because of your own prejudice. Now, this whole plane is paying the price. Do you think that's right?" His words cut deep into Karen's shaken pride. She bowed her head again as tears threatened to spill, but her ingrained stubbornness held them back. Meanwhile, Olivia remained quietly seated with Emily in her arms. Though she felt a twinge of guilt for the inconvenience to her fellow passengers, she knew she'd done the right thing. Her choice protected herself and her daughter, and sent a powerful message to anyone still clinging to harmful biases. About 30 minutes later, as the plane began its descent back to Los Angeles, the captain's voice came over the speaker once more. "We are now preparing to land at Los Angeles International Airport. After touchdown, please remain in your seats. A company representative will board to assist you. We apologize again for this unexpected turn of events." This time, the silence in the cabin was even heavier. Passengers fully grasped that they'd witnessed something extraordinary. A moment when fairness was asserted swiftly and decisively, yet at the cost of a serious disruption to the flight. As the aircraft touched down and eased onto the runway, Karen still stood motionless, her eyes empty. Her dreams, ambitions, and decades-long career had evaporated in an instant. She now faced the consequences of her own grave error. And most frighteningly, she understood that no one but herself was to blame. Olivia hugged Emily close, gazing out the window at the welcoming lights of LAX growing nearer. She knew that from this moment forward, not only would Karen's life be changed, but Summit Air's culture and reputation would face profound, determined reform. This shocking event served as a powerful wake-up call to everyone who witnessed it, that in a civilized society there is no place for discrimination, and those who cling to it will ultimately pay the price. When the Boeing 777's wheels lightly kissed the runway at Los Angeles International Airport, Olivia could feel the tension in first class reach its peak. The familiar crackle over the PA system cut through the cabin once more as Captain Mitchell's solemn voice came through. "We have landed safely at Los Angeles International Airport. Please remain seated. A Summit Air representative will board immediately to assist you. We sincerely apologize for this unfortunate disruption." Every second that passed piled even more pressure onto Karen. Her eyes stared blankly ahead, her face ashen, her hands clenched so tightly they threatened to crack. As the cabin door opened, two senior Summit Air executives in dark uniforms strode in, their expressions stern and uncompromising. One was Catherine Adams, Summit Air's Director of Human Resources, known for her strict but fair approach. She stopped right in front of Karen and spoke with clear authority. "Ms. Karen Wilson, you are hereby suspended effective immediately for discriminatory and disrespectful conduct toward a passenger. Please surrender your ID badge and follow us off this aircraft at once." Karen tried to speak, but Catherine cut her off with a cold, resolute stare. "I will not hear any justifications. Your actions directly violated the core values and ethical standards Summit Air upholds. I am deeply disappointed." Catherine's voice carried loud enough for every first-class passenger to hear. In that moment, the cabin fell nearly silent as justice played out before their eyes. Trembling, Karen handed over her badge, her cheeks burning with shame and rage. As she stepped down the narrow aisle, the disapproving stares of fellow passengers felt like invisible knives piercing the last remnants of her pride. Olivia watched it all with a heavy heart. Though she knew this was necessary and right, she felt no glee in Karen's public downfall, only a profound sadness that it couldn't have been resolved more gracefully. Once Karen was escorted off, Catherine Adams approached Olivia with genuine warmth and courtesy. "Miss Carter, I'm Catherine Adams with Summit Air. On behalf of the company, I sincerely apologize for what you experienced today. We will launch a thorough investigation and address this matter fully." Olivia rose, cradling Emily, and met Catherine's gaze calmly. "Thank you, Ms. Adams. I hope today's events serve as a strong lesson, so no other passenger ever endures anything like this. I trust the airline will make the necessary changes." Ms. Adams nodded resolutely. "Ms. Carter, you can rest assured we will review all training and management procedures to ensure respect and equality are always paramount. Again, I deeply regret the distress you endured." As Olivia left first class, passengers discreetly nodded or offered her looks of admiration and gratitude. Some even whispered thanks for her courage in standing up to injustice. Yet beneath it all, Olivia carried a lingering sorrow she could not shake, knowing the true work was still ahead. Descending the jet bridge, she saw a private Summit Air car waiting below. Robert Harris stood at the foot of the stairs, his expression both earnest and apologetic. "Olivia, I am so sorry you had to go through this on our flight. I promise to hold everyone involved accountable and ensure this never happens again." Olivia looked into his sincere eyes and replied gently but firmly, "I believe you, Robert, but what I want isn't just individual punishment. It's lasting, systemic change throughout Summit Air's employee management. That responsibility cannot be ignored." Robert nodded emphatically. "You have my word, Olivia. I'll personally oversee this process. I understand the value of fairness and diversity, and we will learn from today's mistakes." The car carried Olivia and Emily away from the airport. As the city lights flickered past the window, Olivia held her daughter close. She knew that Karen's personal downfall was only one outcome, that today's shock would also serve as a powerful wake-up call for Summit Air's culture and reputation. In a civilized society, there is no place for discrimination, and those who cling to it will ultimately have to answer for their actions. Even as justice was served, Olivia felt a deep sadness endure in her heart, because she understood that the fight against society's invisible prejudices was far from over, and that the road ahead would hold many more challenges. The car carried Olivia and baby Emily away from the airport in a hushed glide, the muted streetlights drifting past the window and mirroring the deep worry in Olivia's eyes. She cradled her daughter close and stared out at the nighttime skyline of Los Angeles, peaceful on the surface, but her heart churned with restless unease. Olivia knew that although the plane had landed, the story was only just beginning to spread. And spread it did. That very evening, the incident went viral. On Flight 718 that day, a fellow passenger seated not far from Olivia, Alex Bennett, a well-known tech investor from Silicon Valley, had quietly filmed everything. From the first moment Karen began harassing Olivia, through to the instant Karen was suspended before everyone's eyes. Outraged by the blatant racism Olivia endured, Alex didn't hesitate. He posted a short clip with a pointed caption to Twitter as soon as he disembarked. Within hours, the story exploded online. Social media ignited into a frenzy, with millions of shares, comments, and expressions of outrage pouring in from around the world. The video, showing Karen blocking Olivia from changing her baby's diaper and hurling insults, instantly transformed Karen Wilson from a veteran flight attendant into the living symbol of prejudice. Karen Wilson began trending on major news sites, social comment programs, and every social media forum. The hashtag #sign Summit Air Karen shot to the top of Twitter and Facebook. Outrageous details from Karen's past, her personal accounts, photos, and private life were mercilessly exposed. At first, Karen tried to weather the storm with weak excuses and justifications, but each statement only fueled the backlash. No one wanted to hear rationalizations from someone who'd shown such clear bias, regardless of her claimed motives. Furious, critical, even hateful comments piled up day after day. Karen's private life was laid bare. Her home in Los Angeles was besieged by cameras and curious onlookers, and her family and friends were forced to vacate their normal haunts to escape the unrelenting harassment. A woman who had once taken immense pride in her profession and social standing suddenly found herself despised by millions of strangers. Her career and reputation, built over decades, crumbled into ashes under the blaze of public condemnation. Olivia watched it all with a heavy heart. Each brutal critique she saw directed at Karen filled her with an odd sympathy, not because she forgave Karen's actions, but because she recognized the terrifying power of media and public opinion. Even the most serious offenders, she thought, didn't deserve complete annihilation of their life. That night, as baby Emily slept soundly in her arms, Olivia sat quietly by their window, watching the dim glow of streetlights below. She wondered if she'd done the right thing, whether it might all have been handled more gently. But she also understood a painful truth. Only by bringing such injustices into the harshest possible light could society truly awaken and demand real change. Suddenly, Olivia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw a brief text from Robert Harris. "Olivia, I understand how serious this has become. I promise we'll announce comprehensive reforms and retraining for all Summit Air staff tomorrow. Trust me, this will change our company culture." Reading his message, Olivia let out a soft sigh. Her eyes were thoughtful, but she felt a small relief. At least, this ordeal had become more than a personal tragedy. It was an opportunity for genuine, far-reaching reform that could benefit many in the future. Still, she couldn't shake a wistful sadness when she thought of Karen, someone who chose the wrong path and now faced the harshest consequences of that mistake. Olivia hugged Emily closer and vowed silently that, whatever happened next, she would keep fighting so that children like Emily could grow up in a world where injustice and discrimination had no place. Over the next few days, the story of Karen and that fateful flight continued to dominate public discourse. But Olivia's primary concern wasn't the online outrage. It was how to turn this unfortunate incident into a genuinely meaningful, lasting change. After much reflection, she decided to reach out once more to Robert Harris. Their meeting took place on a sunny afternoon in Summit Air's headquarters. Robert greeted her with a thoughtful expression and clear fatigue from the media pressure, yet his eyes conveyed sincerity and a real determination to make things right. "Olivia, I really want to thank you for agreeing to meet with me today. I know this was an unforgivable incident, but I hope we can work together to turn this pain into a positive step forward for both the company and the community." Olivia watched him for a moment, then gently but decisively placed a prepared folder on the table. Her voice was calm, yet carried a strong inner conviction. "Robert, I agree that now is not the time for regrets. It's time for concrete action." Here's my proposal for an anti-bias training program and cultural awareness initiative for every Summit Air employee. I'd like to call it the Harris-Carter Initiative, to symbolize both our commitment and accountability for this vital change. Robert opened the folder, slowly leafing through the pages with careful attention. Inside was a detailed plan, not just typical training modules, but innovative, comprehensive methods designed to help staff truly understand the roots of racial bias and learn how to respond appropriately in every situation. He paused, looking up at Olivia with a mixture of surprise and admiration. Olivia, this is an incredibly bold proposal, but I think it's exactly what Summit Air needs right now. You've really thought of every aspect. Olivia nodded, her gaze steady. We can't change an entire company's culture with apologies or disciplinary measures alone. We need a clear, lasting commitment that starts from the heart and mindset of each employee. Robert considered for a moment before replying with equal resolve. I completely agree. We need to start immediately. Would you be willing to help me lead and oversee this program? Olivia offered a warm but firm smile. I will give you my full support, Robert. But I have another important suggestion. I'd like to nominate someone to co-lead this initiative from within your company. Robert raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Who do you have in mind? Lucas Thompson, the young flight attendant who was on that flight, Olivia said decisively. I saw how he handled the situation, his courage in speaking up to his superior. I believe he's the perfect voice to inspire real change across the company. Robert nodded enthusiastically. I've heard great things about him. Lucas is highly respected among our younger staff. If you trust him, I'll meet with Lucas right away and invite him to join. A few days later, Lucas Thompson walked into Summit Air's office to meet with Robert and Olivia. He sat down facing them, a hint of tension in his expression, but also a clear determination and confidence. Robert addressed him seriously but sincerely. Lucas, Olivia has told me so much about how you responded during that incident. I want to formally invite you to co-lead the Harris-Carter Initiative, our new program to combat bias and raise cultural awareness at Summit Air. Lucas looked both surprised and honored. His eyes lit with genuine enthusiasm. I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity. I've always believed we shouldn't just stand by when we see injustice. I want to be part of the solution, not just an observer. Olivia smiled, her eyes full of encouragement and pride. Lucas, I know you'll do great. You're young, passionate, and brave enough to challenge outdated norms. Your voice will show others that silence in the face of injustice is complicity. Robert stood and shook Lucas's hand firmly, his voice brimming with conviction. We'll start today. I pledge to provide every resource needed for this program to succeed. Summit Air must become a model of equality and respect in our industry. The meeting ended with a meaningful handshake among the three of them, Olivia, Robert, and Lucas. As she left the conference room, Olivia felt a genuine sense of relief and hope wash over her. This was exactly what she had wanted, transforming a painful experience into the motivation for real, substantial change. What Olivia and Robert had initiated wasn't merely a stopgap measure. It was a powerful, enduring commitment to the future. The Harris-Carter Initiative promised not only to reshape Summit Air's culture, but also to inspire other organizations worldwide to reevaluate their own responsibility in combating all forms of bias and discrimination. And Lucas Thompson, once a junior flight attendant, now stood at the start of a profoundly meaningful journey as the living embodiment of the positive values Summit Air was determined to build from these hard-won lessons. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere at Summit Air shifted dramatically. Once mired in a public relations crisis, the airline suddenly found itself back in the spotlight, this time for overwhelmingly positive reasons. The launch of the Harris-Carter Initiative was announced far and wide, drawing keen interest from both the press and the global business community. From its very first days, the program sparked real, measurable change, surpassing even our loftiest expectations. With Robert Harris's full support and Lucas Thompson at the helm, Summit Air employees threw themselves into the anti-bias workshops and cultural awareness seminars with unprecedented enthusiasm and seriousness. Lucas evolved rapidly, outgrowing the image of the junior flight attendant who had simply witnessed injustice on Flight 718. He emerged as a dynamic leader, confidently addressing hundreds of Summit Air staff, sharing his own story and Olivia's, and helping his colleagues understand why combating every form of discrimination is so vital. His sincerity, openness, and persuasive delivery won him unwavering trust. Every anecdote and concrete example he offered left a strong impression, prompting each listener to reflect deeply on their own biases and behaviors. After just 3 months, the volume of positive feedback from employees soared. Internal surveys showed that over 85% of staff felt the company culture had improved significantly. Mutual respect and empathy had become the new norm. Lucas began receiving heartfelt letters of thanks from colleagues who had once doubted the program's value, but had since become its strongest advocates. One such letter moved Lucas deeply. "Dear Lucas, I'll admit I thought this initiative was just a short-term PR move. But hearing your story made me realize how unconsciously I had been biased. Thank you for helping me change. I now believe I can be a better person, not just at work, but in life. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart." The program's ripple effects soon extended beyond Summit Air. The Harris-Carter Initiative became a shining example, with major corporations in tech, transportation, and media reaching out to learn from our experience and adapt similar programs of their own. Watching his company's remarkable turnaround, Robert Harris couldn't hide his pride. In a national media interview, he said, "We made a huge mistake, but the most important thing was facing it head-on. The success of the Harris-Carter Initiative isn't just about restoring Summit Air's reputation. It's about a real shift in mindset among thousands of employees, creating a more civilized, compassionate workplace than ever before." Olivia followed the program's progress closely, even though she wasn't involved in every detail. Each report of its positive impact filled her with deep satisfaction, though the pain of her earlier experience would never vanish entirely. She knew her actions had been necessary, and the program's successes offered her profound comfort. One bright morning, Lucas visited Olivia at her new downtown Los Angeles office, carrying a small gift, an album filled with photos and moving letters from Summit Air employees whose lives had been transformed by the initiative. Olivia opened the album and gently turned each page, her eyes brimming with tears as she read their heartfelt words. Lucas spoke then, his voice both emotional and proud. "Olivia, I'm so grateful you trusted me with this opportunity. Without you, and without this program, many of us would still be living in ignorance or blind prejudice. You gave us the chance to change, and I promise to keep working so this initiative reaches even farther." Olivia smiled warmly, placing her hand on Lucas's shoulder and looking into his passionate eyes. "Lucas, I was only the catalyst. The real success belongs to your courage, to Robert's leadership, and to everyone who opened their hearts to change. I'm truly happy to see our painful experience become a source of new hope and a fairer world for my daughter and for generations to come." A year had passed in the blink of an eye, and here was Olivia standing once more at the door of the Summit Airjet, her first time back since that fateful day. But this time, she wasn't alone with Emily by her side. Her parents, who had stood by her through every challenge over the past year, were with her as well. Warm sunlight streamed through the terminal windows, as if ushering in a bright new chapter of her life. Stepping into first class, Olivia immediately sensed the difference. Gone were the tension and judging glances of before. In their place was a gentle, welcoming atmosphere now defined by genuine respect. Every flight attendant greeted her with heartfelt smiles and attentive, caring service. Exactly the culture the Harris-Carter Initiative had worked to instill over the past year. No sooner had Olivia settled into her seat than a young attendant appeared at her side, beaming warmly. "Good afternoon, Miss Carter. My name is Emma Davis, and it's an honor to serve you and your family today. I just finished the training you launched through the Harris-Carter program, and I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you." Olivia looked at her in surprise and curiosity, returning her smile. "Thank you, Emma. That means a lot, though I'm curious. Why are you thanking me?" Emma's voice was soft but earnest. "Before I joined the program, I thought my small prejudices were harmless. But thanks to the curriculum you and Lucas created, I realized how much unintentional hurt we can inflict on others. You didn't just change how I do my job, you changed how I see people and my place in this world. I'm truly grateful for the chance to become a better version of myself." Her words moved Olivia deeply. In that moment, she understood that every hardship she'd endured wasn't for revenge or proof of anything. It was to spark real, lasting change for people like Emma, and for the generation her daughter Emily would grow into. The flight continued smoothly and warmly. Olivia and her family were cared for by an entire crew, trained under the program she and Lucas designed. Olivia could feel, in every detail, that Summit Air had transformed, not merely in appearance, but at its very core. Far away from this renewed shine, Karen Wilson now lived in quiet seclusion in a small, rural town. After the storm of publicity subsided, she wrestled daily with loneliness and deep regret. Each day she asked herself where she had gone wrong, and each day the bitter answer was the same. She'd allowed prejudice and arrogance to blind her, costing her everything that truly mattered. No longer the proud flight attendant she once was, Karen took simple jobs and avoided attention. She'd paid a steep price for her mistakes, but the most important lesson she'd learned wasn't about her own losses. It was the pain she'd caused Olivia and little Emily. In her newfound solitude, she finally understood that power and pride pale in comparison to compassion and empathy. As the plane began its descent, Olivia gazed out the window at the clear blue sky, feeling a peace she'd never known before. Emily slept soundly in her arms, her tiny face reflecting the hope and bright future Olivia had always dreamed of. She glanced over at Lucas Thompson, also aboard this special flight. He smiled back, his eyes full of pride and gratitude. Lucas had become a remarkable ambassador for their program, inspiring young people everywhere to carry on this vital work. Touching down gently in Atlanta, Olivia rose from her seat with renewed energy. She knew one thing with absolute clarity. Her fight wasn't for a personal victory, but to build a better world for Emily, for Lucas, for Emma, and for everyone who has ever faced injustice or prejudice. That, she believed, was true justice, not punishment or personal revenge, but the power to transform the world through love, courage, and understanding. As she climbed down the final steps, Olivia bent close to Emily's ear, though her daughter still slept peacefully, and whispered, "Mommy will always do everything she can to make this world a better place for you, and one day I hope you'll be strong enough to change it in your own way, too." Bathed in the golden afternoon light, Olivia Carter smiled, knowing that while her story may have reached its conclusion, the work of justice and compassion would continue on in the hearts and actions of every person touched by it. What do you think about the way Olivia handled the situation and the message she shared? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this inspiring story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting tales. Thank you for watching.